Sups everybody, Mr. Sups here with a little something different. I'm currently enrolled in a class called The Evolutions of Video Games at The Evolutions of Video Games, oh good god, but The Evolution of Video Games. Now I took out the plurals, but whatever. It's at University of Central Florida. It is a very cool class, and if you're there and you need an elective, even if it's not in one of your major electives, I would recommend taking it. Absurdly cool, just on concept alone, but the class itself really delivers on that. But what this is my homework, actually. What we had to do was we had to go out, play a classic arcade game, and sort of review it, and how it, I wouldn't really call it reviewing it, but how it connected with the lecture would be my words, but review was the assignment. So I chose Super Street Fighter 2 something, whatever. I'm not really sure what version it is, but it's Street Fighter. Mainly because I had that on my Wii U, and it's what I got. But what we really talked about with the lecture, I'll go over that first, is like the golden age of arcades. Specifically, 1978 to 1982. We started with, well not today, but in the class that this pertains to, we started with Space Invaders and we ended on E.T. And that's kind of, we're gonna talk about the Crash in the next episode, good god, in the next lecture. Going over what we talked about was how there are a lot of the video game industry at that point was just pretty constant. Things were, most games only achieved very moderate successes. Even very successful games at certain points were just doing all right. Decent numbers were selling, I think it was 60,000 arcade cabinets. The exact numbers might be different, but I'm just kind of going off the top of my head. But certain games that we were talking about, games like Space Invaders, Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, and those are just the big names that everyone's heard about. There's the still very popular but somewhat obscure games like Defender and Galaxian that came out. And those games, when they came out, they were huge compared to that. They would rake in hundreds of thousands of sales for the arcade cabinets. That's kind of what we were going with that. But also is that there were a lot of things that happened during those games, just in the industry itself, that really sort of echoed with a lot of the problems that we are having now. I wouldn't say now, that we've been having, people being spread a bit too thin with their things, because we were leading up to the Crash and all that, and also how there's just so many clones coming out. We were talking, not this week, but last week, we were talking about Pong, and after Pong came out, everyone was trying to clone Pong, and usually the clone for Pong, just to try to make it new so you wouldn't be sued by Atari, just be sneered at as, oh, it's a Pong clone, was to add more Pong to it. There was Quadra Pong, which was just Pong with 2 more paddles. Just the stretching too thin and the clones, and also the ongoing sort of battle, I don't want to say, because it's not really a battle being fought, it's an ideological thing with a lot of pundits talking about how the single player is dying, long live the multiplayer and the competition, which is kind of funny why I talked about it. Well, not talked about, why I picked a Street Fighter 2, but I'll get into that when I get into my review of it, or really just how it fits with the lecture, but whatever. Stuff like that. Actually, no, I'll get into that now. So Street Fighter 2 as I was saying, like, there were a lot of... The arcades were pretty constant. And then, like, there would be these huge mega successes. And to just be a shot in the arm to the industry, everyone would, like, try their damnedest to try to just clone it. Or just try to figure out what it did right and do that again. And Street Fighter, well, specifically like the Street Fighter 2, that happened a lot. Even Street Fighter did that. Even Capcom did that. Like, there was like the other just like clones, the rather good ones, like the King of Fighters and, well, not really King of Fighters, but Fatal Fury, Art of Fighting, that became King of Fighters. That's a talk for another time. But games like that, SNK's stuff, and then there was other stuff like, I think it was like World Heroes or something like that. There were a lot of ones that were just, like, you can tell that they just kind of copy-pasted Street Fighter right down to the character design. Like, yeah, they might have had, like, a girl with red and having ponytails rather than, like, the buns and the blue, but you can tell that that's still supposed to be Chun-Li. That's kind of happened with Street Fighter, and even Capcom did that, as I said. Like, they had Darkstalkers come out to try to capitalize on that success, and so many different versions of Street Fighter. I mean, I said I don't exactly know what version this is. I think it might be, like, version 4 or 5, or something like that. I don't know. Also, Mortal Kombat. Can't believe I forgot about Mortal Kombat. That was one of the more successful ones. So that's kind of how it compares to that. Also, the whole competition aspect. With a lot of games, well, with a lot of fighting games are like the most competitive, multiplayer-focused genre. And this all kicked off, off with Street Fighter 2. That's where it all sort of just began. And although not just the competitive nature, but the fighting game competitive nature, and it's gotten to the point where I don't want to say conventions, just entire leagues of professional video game players that just continually go against each other in video games. There's EVO, which is pretty fantastic. If you don't know what EVO is, look it up, and stuff like that. And even now today, there is that whole single player just isn't viable anymore. We gotta move towards multiplayer. And constantly that's being told that it's wrong. I mean, Skyrim comes out and sells oodles and oodles and oodles of cash, and it doesn't have a multiplayer component, and then Elder Scrolls Online came out, but that's neither here nor there. Just stuff like that. So, do I like this game? One of the requirements said that we can't not like a game just because it's old, and that can't be our reasoning, because that's not valid for historical class, and I do see that, and that is not valid, but it is very, very hard for me to come back and play this game, because I've played a lot of fighting games, and it is really difficult. I went over this when I was playing Ratchet & Clank, that you go back and play something early in the series or the franchise, and you're just fighting yourself because of all the innovations that have been made it a lot easier. But that's neither here nor there. On its own merits, do I like this game? Yeah, I really, really do. It is very solid as a game. There's a lot to like. There's a lot of variety in the way you can play the game. There's, I don't know, I think like 20 or so fighters, maybe 16? Yeah, 16. 16 fighters in this game. Each one plays, well, not each one. Most of them play very differently from each other. I'm looking at you, Ryu and Ken. But, they all play very differently from each other. Each one is very, has their own skill level in and of themselves just to play it. Like, you can pick up Ryu and Ken rather easily, or Chun-Li and E Honda, and you can just spam your 100-hand slaps and lightning legs all day long, and you can be good, and you can actually have those strategies to get you into the game. But then you have characters like Zangief and M. Bison and Balrog and Vega that really have like these unique strategies and unique moves that you really have to learn how to do them. You just can't quarter circle your way through. You have to you have to kind of fiddle with them, which is very good, because you can really kind of see the design happening. When you first play the game, you're going to be picking your Chun-Lis, and then you'll gradually step up to your Zangiefs until you find something that you like. If there is something that I kind of just don't like about this game, is that it is actually very kind of hard, and that might just be my skill level at this game being minimal, but I'll admit, I'm doing both commentary on this. I'm not exactly sure where I'm at in the video, but I spent a good long while getting my ass beat by E Honda. So, yeah, and that's like third guy. I mean, I guess it's like it's an arcade game. They just want you to pump quarters in. But as I was saying, E Honda was one of the easier people to pick up. So, yeah. It is very, very challenging, and even then, the accessibility is something that I find rather lacking in the game. Like, yeah, I was talking about how there's so many different options to choose from, but you also have 6 buttons and a joystick to choose from. Each one does their own separate things. Each character has at least 2 moves. Most of them have more that you all have to memorize. You all have to learn the various different mechanics that go into it. So if I do the quarter circle with the light punch, it's going to go slow, but I want it to go fast. But sometimes it's that skill level involved. Like, personally, I do enjoy, and I know a lot of fighting game players enjoy, but a lot of people aren't as good as at fighting games, or aren't as receptive to that level of difficulty curve. Even then, we were talking about how there's that problem today. That was really a problem back then. We were still talking about it because we haven't gone through the evolution in our video games enough to get rid of that problem. It's still there in fighting games, and I want to say it's gotten better, and also kind of worse at the same time. It really depends on your fighting game. Like, you do have games like Smash Bros. That make it easier for people to get into, and then you'll have games like Skullgirls and Tekken, which have very precise, very finicky controls, but a lot of them, and it just, you kind of know what I'm talking about with that. But do I like the game? Yeah, it's fun. You can play it a lot. But we have evolved past this game, I would say. I don't know. Alright. So, that's all I have to say about Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter, what the hell ever it is. See you guys.